From ancient wisdom to modern life, the search for understanding spans across cultures and time. Born in China, Dr. Samuel Wang now serves as the Director of Interfaith Services and the Center for East Asian Religions. In this role, he fosters dialogue and understanding between diverse cultures, guided by his passion for ancient Chinese traditions and biblical teachings. Beyond his professional responsibilities, Dr. Wang captivates audiences as an author and speaker, sharing his insights on spirituality and wisdom. His books, such as God and the Ancient Chinese, Back to the Beginning for an Enlightened Life, and Intriguing Connections, the Dharma and the Gospel, have sparked curiosity and encouraged a deeper appreciation for the universal truths found across cultures. With his approachable speaking style and thought-provoking insights, Dr. Wang invites audiences to explore fresh perspectives in his seminars. These sessions highlight the connections between ancient wisdom and modern life, focusing on themes like health, personal fulfillment, and societal harmony. And now, please welcome Dr. Samuel Wang.
Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege and honor to come to Cebu, and we discover the ancient wisdom together. Now, you may wonder, let me see if this works. Sometimes it doesn't. All right. Why discover ancient wisdom? Well, simple fact is that we have so much problems, challenges in the 21st century. Even I found there's a Filipino book said, what are you going to do? Where are you going in the 21st century? Philippines, where is the road for the Philippines? Now, we all probably know what does the 21st century look like. Now, it doesn't take much to review the 2001, you have a 911, and there's 3,000 people get killed. And then America launched a war against Afghanistan. 1.5 million people get killed. And they call that justice. What a nasty justice that is. Shameless. And pretty soon you have the SARS, and you have tsunamis, and you have earthquake. Not only in China, even today you have earthquake here in Cebu. You know, just 2 days ago, we were driving in Jakarta to the way to Semarang, and on the way, all of a sudden the car just moved. We don't know what happened. And then a few minutes later, then discovered it was an earthquake. It was a wave of the earthquake. Pushed the car like a turbulence. We just have endless problems. And you can see after the earthquake, and then you have financial crisis in America and in the world, and then pretty soon you have COVID. Lockdown everywhere, and everyone still remember, no matter what you do, what the experts have said, this is gonna work, this is gonna fix the problem, it doesn't work. It is through the COVID that we come to a conclusion globally, whatever the expert says, it's false. That's just, it's a simple truth. Whatever they say about fixing problem, you end up not fixing it. So where can we, if we cannot trust the expert, where can we find the wisdom? And now, after COVID, you have more wars, and Russia, Ukraine, Europeans, America is supporting all the money and the weapons they can do, but the heathen countries, the Christian countries are supporting wars. The heathen countries, India, support peace. Another heathen country, China, support peace. It looks like the whole world is upside down. The Christian country doesn't behave like Christian country. Heathen country doesn't behave like heathen country either. Nothing seems to work. And how can we solve this problem? People think it's the challenges of the 21st century. Can we conquer them? Now look at the word conquer. It's a Western way of thinking. Now even before we start the 21st century, in 1988 in France, there was a meeting. 75, you look at the numbers, 75 participants. They are Nobel Prize winners, 52 scientists, and there are others. Now, these people, they come to some conclusions how to face the 21st century. One of the main key answers they provide is that if mankind is to survive, it must go back 25 centuries in time to tap the wisdom of Confucius. This is even before China became the target. Now China, let me just do a disclaimer first. I came from China originally, and then I moved to the States in the middle 90s. I'm not pro-political China here. What we're saying, we have many Chinese who are in mainland China, but there's also many Chinese overseas. We have Chinese who speaks Chinese. We have many Chinese who do not speak Chinese at all. And then we have many other people. They speak Chinese, but they're not Chinese people. So what we're saying is not a political Chinese wisdom, but it's some ancient wisdom that are handed down from the past. Now, if you look back and the whole world, we have 4 so-called ancient civilizations. Now, among all of these 4, and today there's only one survived. That's the Chinese culture and Chinese wisdom. All the other cultures are gone. Egyptians is replaced by Muslims in the 7th century. Now there's no Egyptian culture anymore. It's gone. Mesopotamia, gone a long time ago. The last museum was bombed by the U.S. purposely. Of course, U.S. have done many things purposely. I don't know for good or for bad. Indian culture is a big mix. Many Indians, they forgot their mother tongue. There is even now English, a foreign language, become the official language. So they kind of, in a way, lost their ancient original culture in many ways. But the Chinese are still the same culture survived until today. Now, when you think about the Chinese culture, many people have a very superficial idea. There is a poll to say, when you think about the Chinese icon, Chinese culture, you can see from this chart, Jackie Chan comes the highest. And then you have the Great Wall, and then you have the Chinese restaurant, and then you have the Chinese medicine and so forth. There are good impressions about the Chinese culture. There are also many misunderstandings. The same way that the Chinese also have misunderstandings, even the Chinese today may have misunderstanding about their own culture, not to mention foreigners. However, there is yet another ancient culture which also had a great impact on this world. That is the Hebrew wisdom. So in this series, in these few days, we're going to explore the ancient wisdom from one of the surviving 4 ancient civilizations, which is the Chinese ancient wisdom, and another blooming and more influential culture or wisdom is Hebrew culture. This will be the 2 sources we'll draw our wisdom from. Now, interestingly, if you look at the Hebrews, they have a Bible. Chinese have the Chinese classics. It was written originally on the bamboo books. It is also handed down. Now, if you look at these 2, they will find many similarities. So let us just at the start set some objectives. We want to explore what is the original root of Chinese culture. Now, if this culture has such a strong life force, survived so many centuries, it doesn't mean that China was not conquered by foreign countries. It was conquered by foreign tribes, countries 3 times. But interestingly, each time when China was conquered, the conqueror adopted Chinese culture immediately. to give up their own culture. 3 times they did the same. 3 times coming from different tribes, different race, they all gave up their own culture, adopted Chinese culture. So we wanted to know why they do that. Why is the people, the 75 Nobel Prize winners, they're not just like you and me. I don't think we have a Nobel Prize winner here tonight. If we do, the stage is not mine tonight. But what is the original root of Chinese culture that helped them survive until now? And we also want to call the modern Chinese to go back to the original root. But if you take the Chinese roots of their spiritual culture away, the Chinese culture is just as the same like any other culture. There's no difference. We also want to make it clear that both the Bible and the Chinese wisdom, they actually come from the same source. There's no 2 sources. They all come from the one and the same source. And we will notice that there's so many so-called the Hebrew biblical truths. They're already written in the Chinese classics. Almost all biblical truths, almost all were written in the Chinese and handed down until now. Gradually, we can probably understand why there's so much hatred about Chinese today. Maybe it's not only political or economical. Nobody hates money, and actually many who are against China, against Chinese culture, they do business with China. So that is just the plain fact. Now, we also want to, if we can, to find some ultimate solutions for our personal or even global or national challenges and problems. Is there a solution in the Chinese wisdom or the ancient Hebrew wisdom to provide an ultimate solution to the problems today? And finally, we'll also call with, because before I thought, if in China we have so many products. After I come to Philippines, I learned something from Philippines. The Filipinos say God created heaven and earth, and Chinese created everything else. Good or bad? And so China have all kinds of fake stuff. But when I learned more, I said, hey, wait a second. Actually, Chinese were not the first one who make fake stuff. So many so-called Christianity are projecting fake teachings for centuries. Or they do a better job in making fake stuff. And you just don't know it. So we wish that we can call all the Christians, no matter what denomination belong, you go back to the biblical root. No matter what your church is teaching, if it is not rooted in the scripture, that's maybe something we need to give up. So we have 7 nights. We're going to go one by one. And so let's just do a chronology comparison. And we will just look at the Earth's chronology. If you look at it this way, the Earth was created 4004 BC. That is how you get the date Jesus died. Jesus was baptized in 27 AD and it died on the 31. That's from that date. 4004 BC was the starting point for the creation on Earth. In other words, this world is only about 6,000 years. 1656 years later, then you have the flood. And 101 years later, you have the Tower of Babel. And after that, you have the migration of people to go everywhere. 42 years later, you have the Chinese coming to China to become the first Chinese dynasty. And we probably can prove from the historical background that the ancient Chinese were not the Babel builders. If they were, they may have already finished it before it's still down. They can do things so fast. But whatever we will know, we will learn tonight, actually Chinese is one organization, one race that continued their earlier traditions handed down from Adam. And they did that for more than 4,000 years. And so if you look at, this is just another graphic chart to give you the same idea. There are few figures, few numbers which are important. 4004 BC and 2348 BC is the flood. And then you have 2247 BC as the Tower of Babel. But after 40-some years, China already have the first dynasty in the Chinese history. Now, if you look back to the history with the 6,000 years world history, you will see the Bible has 3,500 years history until now. From Moses to now, it's about 3,500 years. But before Moses, the Word of God, the revelation from heaven, was already there. Only not in written form. Not, let me correct that, not in the book form like the Bible. If you say who wrote the oral revelation first, you probably will come to a conclusion after the series, the Chinese is the first one, who wrote down all the oral revelation, and which we can still have access today. We still have not a full access, but we have traces here and there to review what was the oral revelation in the first 25 centuries. In the beginning, everything was in one language. You may argue whether in Chinese or Hebrews or I don't know, but it is one language. And later, it was after the Tower of Babel, it was in many versions. So keep that in mind. Whether it's oral revelation or the written revelation, both come from the same source. It is the same place. The Chinese have classics. And for those who know, we normally call the 四书五经. We have 4 books and 5 classics. The Bible, you have the 66 books, but they all have the same source. The Bible opens with Genesis, and it tells us in the beginning God created everything. So everything starts with God. So I want to show you how does the Chinese write about God, in what kind of character they write about God. Well, this is how they know about it. They said heaven is the ancestor of all things. Now this is written about 3,000 years ago in a book, 3,000 years ago. Heaven, the ancestor of all things. You heard about the Chinese are so-called the ancestor worshippers. The worship ancestor. But who was the original ancestor? According to the ancient Chinese book, heaven is the ancestor of everything. The true ancestor worship should be the worship of heaven. Even in the Lord's Prayer, the Hebrews call God as what? As a father, as an ancestor. He is the ancestor. This is the true ancestor worship. Nothing will be born without heaven. Now this is how the Chinese character write about heaven. It's pictographic. Now let me analyze it. This is the word about above. Now this representing the earth. Above the earth. So this is obvious, above. The next one is a picture of a great man. This is a great man. Look like a great man. It's a picture of a man. Now if you put these two together, the great man above, this is the great man above, and this is heaven. So God, in the Chinese concept, the way we write it is the great man above. Now, this is much better than the Einstein understanding. Einstein can understand that there is a designer, but he doesn't think God is a person. As smart as Einstein, without the revelation, it still appeared to be not so smart. Today, many scientists, they believe in evolution. Now, you have to do some contrast in order to appreciate the Chinese understand God as a person in heaven. Now, you look at the so-called science. The science, I don't have to spend too much time on it. Today, so many scientists, and their theories, their teachings are based upon evolution. If you don't agree with evolution, you probably cannot publish a paper today. Not easy. There is one student, a PhD student. She was studying in the University of Wisconsin. She was studying the blood in the dinosaur. And from that, she discovered the dinosaur, maybe it's because it's dead, it's because of flood. For 9 years, she couldn't find any place to publish her paper. Finally, her dissertation was published by Loma Linda, a medical school. And that tells you how dark the scientific world is, how prejudiced. They're not so-called scientific. They're political, regional, profit-driven world. And if you look at the world, there's so many books written about 21st century. You couldn't find even one talking about how to deal with the war, how to deal with who caused this COVID. Nobody dared to do that because every researcher is still getting the paycheck from those who made the policies. No one dared to do anything, to say anything, except if you are rooted from revelation, from the source that is not human-based. Otherwise, there's no so-called scientists or scholars. They are all basically check makers, that's all. What is the science? Well, if I give a definition, you wouldn't trust. Let me quote a Nobel Prize winner. This guy is a Nobel Prize winner in 1966 in physics. He's a very interesting scientist, but he is also very interesting guy because he gave a definition about what is science. He says science is a belief in the ignorance of experts. Now, in 1966, he made this statement. He doesn't have to wait until COVID to prove that all experts are false. It was much clever. Because every few years you change, your textbooks change. All the inventions, or like medicine and so forth, after a few years, always proven to be harmful. You have to give up. Every few years, you revise the textbooks because that perspective is wrong. And then scientists knows how to cover all of this. So they invented a very academic name for it. They call that paradigm shift. Oh, it was wrong. It was the wrong paradigm. Now we shift to another paradigm. But a few more years, they shift to another paradigm. Keep on shifting. Never be able to find out what is the absolute truth. So he's saying that science is a belief in the ignorance of experts. This is a top-notch scientist saying that. If you are still believing everything you need scientific facts and support, forget it. You don't even know what is science. You are just fooled by the propaganda. That's all. The scientists themselves acknowledge it is a blind faith. So, evolution. It's a blind faith. Now, if you compare with others, you will see the idea about God's creation is so different. You look at India. India is an ancient culture. So they see the woman give birth through the tummy. So they think when God created this world, it must also come from the tummy. So that's all the Indian faiths and myths. That's how it gets started that way. By the way, I followed Hinduism for some time, about 5 years. I even built a Hindu ashram. I was the temple president. I was initiated, chanting beads every day for 4 years and 8 months. Get up every morning before 4 o'clock. I translated the Bhagavad Gita into Chinese, and I translated many other books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, many Hindu books. I understand a little bit about the Hindu culture because they see how animals give birth from the tummy. Human gave birth from the tummy. So when the Creator gave birth to the whole universe, it must also from the tummy. That's how they did it. The Africans is less imaginative. Oh, they say, there's only 2 ways you naturally get your things out. One is through the button, another one, split. So they said, okay, the creation come from God's split, and then everything was created. Not a very smart idea. But the Hebrew and the Chinese teaches different. They teach God is a person. He creates everything, but yet we don't know. We don't see his shape. We don't understand. And the Chinese call this person as creator as Tian. Now the space he creates is also called Tian because the space comes from God, from Tian. Now in English, I don't know Tagalog, but in English you spend a day 24 hours. You say this is a day. How would the Chinese say how to measure time? So the Chinese would say this is Yi Tian. This is also a heaven. Because the time, the 24 hours we have is coming to you, it's coming to us, is given to us by heaven. So heaven is the only suitable measurement of our time. Each day we spend a day that God gave us. He shared his time with us. So anyone understand Chinese here? 今天, 昨天, 明天, yesterday, today, tomorrow, 天天. So we use time, we use heaven, we use God as a measurement for time. The most important thing is also, we call that a tian. Now, but what is the most important thing actually? You look at the whole world, there are so much problems. What is your priority? What is the most important thing? What can we learn from this ancient history? Now, if we look back, we say, okay, God created everything, and on this earth, he created a man. This is how man was created. In the Bible, it says, and the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So he made the body out of the dust and gave the breath of life through his nostrils. We read this Bible, we should stop and think. When God formed the body, it's cold. It's a cold body. It's a dead body. But when he gave the breath of life, the body become hot, become warm, and then even have halos, radiate. The glory covered the body. So the original body of Adam and Eve must be very high temperature, not 36 degrees, much higher than that. Now, this shows, the pictures shows how God, given the breath of life. How about the Chinese record of how God created man? If they know God is a creator, how was man created? Well, they also recorded this in an ancient book, which is also 3,000 years old. Now, you'll keep on hearing me say, this is 3,000 years old, this is 4,000 years old. It's not like America, 200 some years old. This is how man came to be. That heaven gives essence. The earth provides the form. These two combined then become man. This is the Chinese record. They didn't copy from the Hebrews because the Chinese were exposed to the oral revelation. So they recorded it this way. Today we still have access. You read this one, it is the same like the Hebrew Bible we just read. So how shall we relate to heaven? You know, in the Genesis, there's only one lesson to be learned. Obedience to God leads to life. Disobedience to death. That's it. This is also the Chinese lesson. Obedience to heaven leads to life. Disobedience to heaven means death. 顺天者存，逆天者亡. We're still repeating the same thing today, which is there 4,000 years ago. Even though Chinese, we don't understand, we don't know God that well today, but this language is still there. We just need to discover and notice, oh, it's still there. And if you offend heaven, it says not only you offend a principle, but you hurt his feelings. So with the Chinese say, 伤天害理. You not only break the law, you also hurt his feelings. When Christians, we so many times we talk about breaking the law, we only emphasize breaking the law. Sometimes we forgot. We break the law, we hurt God's feelings. That's the idiom. It's still popular today in the Chinese sayings. And also say, heaven always opens the way for man. Heaven never destroys man. That's the Chinese understanding. Today we still say, 天无绝人之路. Heaven never destroys man. Heaven always opens a way. There is always a way to escape. Now, there are so many governments today, for probably 4,000 years, at least 2,000 years. All the official Chinese government document starts with this sentence, 奉天承运，皇帝诏曰. This is what it says. By the grace of heaven, this humble emperor gave this decree. Which government does that today? Nobody. But this is the practice. This is a very common practice for all the emperor's decrees. They start with the sentence, by the grace of heaven. So many people think Chinese, they never believe in God. That's wrong. Chinese always believe in God. How to relate to God? They have so many words. But anyway, in English you have fear God, love God. But Chinese there's so many. 敬天, 视天, 笑天, 法天, 则天, 顺天, 尊天, 祭天, 奉天, 应天. There's so many words telling the differences, very delicate differences, how we relate to heaven. The emotions, their relationship was very deep. Now, what is it that throughout the ancient Chinese history, and also throughout the Hebrew history, is considered to be the most important thing? There's so many things happened. But what is this one thing that is considered the most important in the Chinese culture and also in the Hebrew culture? There's only one thing. Are they the same? Well, let's take a look. Now, today there's many people asking the question, what are the most important thing in the world? Some people say it's money. And so we're going to just take a look. Just to look how countries demonstrate their power. Many countries, this is the U.S. demonstrated army. They're still showing their muscle every day, everywhere. Russia, French, and China, Philippines. Every country. Think army is important. You know, they spend a lot of money just for their defense. They think they are strong. And this is, and I discovered in Cebu you have probably the largest festival in the Philippines. Consider that's important. Cultural, religious. In America, there's the largest gathering. Martin Luther King, I have a dream, calling for the equality of man, black and white. And India and Pakistan, they're trying to compete with each other. They make this very national, famous for tourism. And the others think Olympic game is another way important for life. But you see so much unhappy things happen over there. It doesn't seem like people have a good grasp of what is the most important thing today. Now, so let's go back and look at the ancient China. See, what is the most important thing that is handed down for thousands of years? Again and again, all the leaders have to do this as their first priority. Surprisingly, it's not economy. I remember when I first came to the States, it was Clinton's time. Clinton was the president. Clinton had one famous quote. He said, "It is economy, you stupid. It is the economy. That is the most important thing." Look at all the world today. Everyone is trying to do economy. But if you earn money, the money can be easily gone if you don't have health, right? You earn all your money for a life. One disease can take all your money away. Could that be? Yeah. So there are things that needs to be balanced. So even Clinton, he was not so smart. He think economy was the thing. But no, look at the ancient Chinese. They think the most important thing is sacrifice to heaven. So make a sacrifice to heaven. This is the number one job for the emperor, for the king. Before anything else, they show their diligence. They show their reverence to heaven. That is the most important thing. The Chinese have a long history. I've shown this earlier. We have a legendary history, then we have the written history. The legendary history is about 1,500 years. But if we forgot about the legendary, only talking about the written history, we still have a lot of evidences. Now, I just, for the time's sake, also for our audience sake, I only show a few men that you may know. Confucius. Everyone heard this name, right? Confucius. But Confucius is a very tall man, 9 feet tall, a very tall man. Yeah. Interesting, just a side note for the parenting. It's interesting, in the Chinese history, those who has become the real teachers, real wise men, the father died before they turned into 3 years old. They were raised single by the mother only. Confucius was raised by his mother. His father died when he was 3. Another famous Chinese sage is also, his father died before he turned into 2. But in other words, I think the balance of the way I shared, but I also see the reason why even Confucius, when he was raised by a single mother, he becomes such a great man is because he was taught in the oral revelation. Today it would be the same thing. Whether you have a mother figure, if you're not teaching based upon the heavenly principles, it's not going to work. Even if you are a single parent, if your teaching is based upon the biblical principle, the Bible provides the father figure, mother figure, it will be better than the reality, what is lacking. Well, anyway, Confucius, he made a statement, great indeed was Yao as a king. Yao is a legendary king, one of the earliest legendary king. He said, it is only heaven that is great. Who is great? Heaven is great. Only Yao, this legendary king, corresponds to it. He is the most obedient. And that's why his name handed down until now. And he said how vast and deep was his obedience that people couldn't find a name for it. He was very obedient, very obedient. A man become great in the Chinese history not because of their achievement. It is because their obedience to heaven. Depends on how obedient they were. And here's another one, and another ancient legendary king. Look at the time is 2315 to 2022-05 BC. It's very early on. It said he sacrifices to Sangdi. Sangdi means God. Just like Hebrews El Shaddai, Xng Dai. We Chinese call it Xng Dai. Hebrews call it El Shaddai. Very similar. Even the phonetics, very similar. So we handed down the most important thing is ceremony. By the ceremony of sacrifices, you serve God. But even Confucius didn't understand why have to kill animals. His time, he was only 500 years before Christ. He didn't know. But they kept the ceremony there with the Bible of how the emperors throughout dynasties worship heaven throughout histories. Every night this performance is there. No one can go to China without realizing Chinese has been worshiping God for more than 4,000 years. The time when they turn away from God is thanks to the British, French, Germany, Portuguese, Americans. If this country doesn't come to China, they will continue to worship God. When this country come, especially after the Opium War, China was defeated. So they start to think differently. So only after that, after 1840, then the Chinese changed their way of thinking. It is about this time Chinese migrated to Southeast Asia, to Philippines, to Thailand, to Indonesia, to Malaysia. It is all starting from that time when the Western countries come to China to steal things, to conquer China, to export evolution to China, and also together with communism. But you go there, you see that the altar is there. This is in Xi'an, the altar is there today. And when I went there, it was not open yet, but now it's open for public. You can go there. This place, the emperors come, worship for 300 some years. Anyone know this place? Have seen this picture before? This is the Temple of Heaven in Beijing. If you visit Beijing, the first advertisement about the ancient historical place is this one, Temple of Heaven. 600 years now. It was built in, just 600 years ago. And it is here the emperors come to worship. This is the altar. They brought their sacrifices here to worship. Any overseas Chinese, whether you're in Philippines, in America, or whosoever, where you are, the root is the same. The root is the same. The root is not political. The root is worshiping God, is a priority. Now, in the Chinese, you go to Beijing, there's no images of it. And then this chapter 2 talk about he made the Sabbath, he made a man and a woman, he planted the Garden of Eden. And the woman was the last creation on this earth. Now, we will spend more time tomorrow on the Chinese characters, how the Chinese wrote Genesis in their writing. Water become the rivers, cannot. You got to have a waterfall like that. Yeah, and then, different waterfall, then you can become big rivers. So Eden is a huge mountain. Then there's 4 water coming down, 4 waterfalls, become 4 big rivers. That's Eden, beautiful waterfall. That's the original home. But unfortunately, man sinned. And now the Chinese depict the garden like a square. The river goes to 4 directions. In Revelation, there are 4 directions how they go. But then God also put a test there. And we don't have enough time tonight to tell all about it. But the test is they can eat from all trees but except from one tree. And so God said, you must control yourself. How do you control yourself from what? This is the Chinese word for control. Here is a tree. In the middle is a tree. This is a mouse. Your mouse, don't eat from that tree. That's the only thing you need to control. But if you don't, what's going to happen? The Bible says if you eat of it, you will surely die. So let's take a look at the Chinese character to die. Now this is the word to die, means sang. You also see a tree in the middle, right? You see a tree, a hand, two mouths. Two hands plucked from this tree and ate it, dead. That's the Chinese character for to die. So we know this sad story, and the woman was the first one who did it. So the greedy, you have a woman in it, not a man, because she was the first one. So Chinese made an accurate recording. So don't blame your husband. That's what had happened in the Garden of Eden. Now the sacrifice become necessary because man sinned. So after they had a problem, so they were driven out of Eden, and God made the coat of skins for them. And that indicating the first sacrifice. The first sacrifice outside of Eden to redeem, to simplify the way God will redeem our sin and redeem humanity and bring us back to heaven. That is the first ceremony ever on earth. After sin, Adam come out, kill the animal, offer the animal. From then on, this sacrifice coming until now. Two cultures kept it. I don't have enough time, but I do want to show you one more picture. You know, this Hebrews kept it well. I have shown you the Chinese kept it for 4,000 years. Now I want to show you how the Hebrews did it. I mean, Hebrews didn't do it 4,000 years. Hebrews, after they get out of Egypt, they walked for 3 months to come to Mount Sinai. And Moses was called to the Mount Sinai. So the people didn't see Moses for how many days? 40 days. 40 days they didn't see Moses. What did they do? They set up an idol again. 40 days couldn't see anything, couldn't see Moses, so they go back to idol worship again. So the Chinese for 4,000 years, they didn't see anything either. But when they worship heaven, giving sacrifice to heaven, until 1911, when it finally come to an end, 1911, there was no image. No, you compare. 4,000 years only worshiping God with sacrifice, no image, no idols. 40 days, the Hebrews, 40 days, idol again. You tell me, who is a better people of God? Obvious. So obvious, right? They lost their kingdom, they lost their country, they have an endless war. But Chinese culture survived among all the ancient culture. This is the only culture survived, not because Chinese, it's because of God. If you take God's mercy, God's grace, God's teaching away from China, China is a very bad country. And all kinds of problems. But they were exposed. They have this tradition. So today we need to come back and realize, yes, this border sacrifice, altar sacrifice was in China for over 4,000 years, until 1911. So modern Chinese, we should go back to our root, like all our ancestors. It doesn't matter whether you're Chinese, where you are in Philippines or in other parts of the world. Go back to the roots. Worship heaven as our true ancestor. Thank you.